All right, great. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Working out a little bit of technical difficulty there as we're in these unprecedented times. We're going to get everything all ironed out. I thank you for logging in a timely manner and helping us with that and carving out time for your day. This is the regular scheduled meeting of the Court Reporter Board meeting. Let me go ahead and start off with roll then so we can establish quorum. Britton Collins. Judge John Rambo.
Present.
Marilyn Morgan.
Present.
Brandon Pettis.
Present.
Corianne Neal. And then Stephanie Branham. Okay.
Present.
Oh, great. All right. We do have quorum for the notice of meeting then, moving along. Notice of September 25th, 2020 meeting of the Court Reporters Board was posted to the Court Reporters Board website September 14th, 2020. All right. All right. To the agenda, or excuse me, the statement of necessity. Hugh, would you mind?
Sure. This is Hugh Cross speaking. Statement of necessity. According to TCA section 8-44-108, section B, section 2, if a physical quorum is not present at the location of a meeting of the governing body must file such determination of necessity, including the resuscitation of the facts and circumstances on which it was based, with the Office of Secretary of State no later than 2 working days after the meeting. Furthermore, TCA section 844-108A, section 3 defines necessity as matters to be considered by the governing body at that meeting require timely action by the body, that physical presence by a quorum of the members is not practical within the period of time requiring action, and that participation by a quorum of the members by electronic or other means of communication is necessary. This is the regularly scheduled meeting for the Tennessee Board of Cosmetology and Barber Examiners, and the purpose of today's meeting with the members attending by teleconference is to discuss the agenda as noticed on the website earlier. This concludes the statement of necessity.
Great. As you know, members, anytime we do a remote meeting or a teleconference, anything of that nature, anything that's not enough where we don't have a physical presence, we have to read the statement of necessity and then do a roll call vote to accept every single action item. The statement of necessity will be filed with the Secretary of State's office within the next 2 business days. We'll just need a motion to accept the statement of necessity. Do we have such a motion?
Judge Rambo, I move the motion.
All right. Thank you, sir. Judge Rambo has given us a motion to accept the statement of necessity. Do we have a second?
Brandon Pettis, I second that motion.
Thank you, sir. We have a second from Brandon Pettis. For roll call vote, Judge John Rambo.
Yes.
Marilyn Morgan.
Yes.
Brandon Pettis.
Yes.
And Stephanie Branham.
Yes.
All right, thank you. A statement of necessity will be filed and it was approved. Moving on to the agenda. I trust you have the agenda there in front of you along with the other documents. Is there any edits, comments, or questions in regards to the agenda? Anything that you'd like to move around? If not, then we'll accept a motion to accept the agenda as printed. Do we have a motion?
Marilyn Morgan, I make the motion to accept the agenda as printed.
Thank you, ma'am. We have a motion from Marilyn Morgan. Do we have a second?
Judge Rambo seconds the motion.
Okay, thank you, sir. Got a second from Judge Rambo. For roll call vote, Judge John Rambo.
Yes.
Marilyn Morgan.
Yes.
Brandon Pettis.
Yes.
And Stephanie Branham.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Agenda is approved. To the April minutes then. Any comments in regards to the April minutes? Any edits? Okay. We'll accept a motion then to accept the April minutes as printed. Do we have such a motion?
This is Brandon Pettis, and I make a motion to accept the April minutes as printed.
Thank you, sir. We have a motion from Brandon Pettis to accept the minutes. Do we have a second?
Stephanie Branham, a second.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Branham. I have a second from Ms. Branham for a roll call vote. Judge John Rambo.
Yes.
Marilyn Morgan.
Yes.
Brandon Pettis.
Yes.
And Stephanie Branham.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. April minutes. We'll get that published on the website then here in the next few days. All right, so we're ready for our rulemaking hearing. Mr. Cross, if you would go ahead and lead that out for us.
Absolutely. My name is Hugh Cross. This rulemaking hearing is called to order. I serve as an Assistant General Counsel for the Department of Commerce and Insurance Division of Regulatory Boards, and I represent the Tennessee Board of Court Reporting. Would the agency representatives who are present introduce themselves for the record?
Yes, first of all, I'm Assistant Director over a Court Reporting Board. My name is Glenn Kopchak, Kopchak. And then for the board members are Judge John Rambo, Marilyn Morgan, Brandon Pettis, and Stephanie Branham.
Okay, thank you. Today is Friday, September 25th, 2020. This rulemaking hearing is taking place pursuant to Tennessee Code Annotated Section 45204 in Room 1B of the Davy Crockett Tower, 500 James Robertson Parkway, Nashville, Tennessee. The meeting information to attend this rulemaking hearing via WebEx was previously posted to the board website. The purpose of this rulemaking hearing is to solicit comments on proposed rules to amend the process for the application for licensure. Specifically, the proposed change introduces an additional examination accepted upon application for licensure, which is reflective of industry advancements and practical applications by the individual seeking licensure. This additional exam includes a skills test for the American Association of Electronic Reporters and Transcribers, AAERT, CER-Certified Electronic Court Reporter. The rules also amend the standards of professional conduct. Specifically, the proposed change adds the word untranscribed to the description of notes required to be secured by licensees as part of their standards of professional conduct. A rule is defined as an agency statement of general applicability that implements or prescribes law or policy or describes the procedures or practice requirements of the agency. Proposed rules are filed with the Office of the Secretary of State. Notice is given to the public for comment, and a rulemaking hearing is held. Upon conclusion of the hearing and adoption of the proposed rules, the rules are forwarded to the Attorney General's office for review of legality. If approved, they are filed with the Secretary of State, which is responsible for publication, and the Government Operations Committee of the General Assembly. Rules must stay in the Secretary of State's office for 90 days, at the end of which time will be the effective date. The notice of rulemaking hearing included the entire text of the proposed rules and was published on the Tennessee Administrative Register website on April 16th, 2020. Mr. Kopchak, what additional notice was given to the affected individuals or groups?
A notify was sent out to everyone that was signed up for those notices prior to, well in advance, according to the timeline prescribed. And one further note too, Corey and Neal has just joined us as well, and as one of the other board members, so she'll be participating in the rulemaking hearing for the record.
Okay, thank you. This agency will consider all written comments related to the proposed rules. To the extent possible, the agency will also provide the opportunity for interested persons or their representatives to present oral comments. I will now summarize the substance of the proposed rules into the record. Feel free to follow along. I will go through the notice of rulemaking hearing, which is the provided red line version of the proposed rules, and I will need to read the rule chapter and rule title numbers into the record as I go along. Chapter number 0455-01-03, chapter title licensure. Rule number 0455-01-03-.02, rule title application for licensure - standard process. Rule 0455-01-03-.02, Section 1 is being amended by deleting the text of the rule in its entirety and substituting instead language so that, as amended, Rule 0455-01-03- .02 Section 1 shall read, any person may submit an application to be licensed as a court reporter. The application shall include proof of passage of the National Court Reporters Association Registered Professional Reporter Examination, RPR, passage of the National Verbatim Reporters Association Certified Verbatim Reporter Examination, CVR, or passage of both the American Association of Electronic Reporters and Transcribers Certified Electronic Court Reporter, CER, examination, and Certified Electronic Transcriber, CET, examination. That concludes the changes made to that particular rule title. The next proposed change would be under chapter number 0455-01-04, chapter title Standards of Professional Conduct. Rule number 0455-01-04-.01, rule title Standards of Professional Conduct. Rule 0455-01-04.01, section 1G is being amended by deleting the text shorthand and replacing with the text untranscribed, so that, as amended, Rule 0455-01-04-.01, Section 1, Section G shall read, shall establish a plan for the security and preservation of untranscribed notes and any backups, both paper and electronic. All such plans shall preserve notes and backups for a period of time that complies with statutory requirement or rules and guidelines of the court. In the absence of a law or rule, notes and backups must be retained for no less than 5 years. That concludes the changes, the proposed changes being made to that particular rule title. Now that I've discussed the substance of the rules, I will move on to public comments. Is there any member of the public present, either attending in person or appearing remotely, whom would like to offer oral comments? Seeing that there are none, I will read.
Can you hear me? My name is Marcia Moody.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Yes, good morning. My name is Marcia Moody. I would just like to put on the record that I am opposed to the change to the requirement of the CET. I believe it is just another obstacle to throw in the face of the court reporters. I believe that the passage of the first examination, which is the CER, would be sufficient.
Okay. Okay, I'm just making notes. Okay, your comment is noted. Is there any member of the public present, either attending in person or appearing remotely, whom would like to offer additional oral comments?
This is Marilyn Morgan. Can we ask a question? Can the board ask questions of the public who have comments?
Sure, you can ask a question.
Okay. Could I ask Marcia, Marcia, why are you opposed to the transcription part being added? Thank you.
Yes, I just believe it's an unnecessary obstacle for the court reporter to. I think it's a well practiced and goes on that people can have transcribers as well as scopists. So I just believe it's an unnecessary obstacle for the court reporter also to pass the transcriptionist test.
This is Marilyn Morgan. And if I could offer just a little bit of our rationale behind that, or at least mine, a court reporter, a machine reporter has to pass the RPR, which includes the transcription portion. So that's why we're trying to make it more compatible, because the court reporter herself is ultimately responsible for the transcript. So that's my rationale. I just wanted to explain that, where I was coming from.
And I do believe that the court reporter can ultimately be responsible. But I do believe that the passage of the extra exam is an obstacle that is unnecessary at this point.
All right. Do we have any additional comments? Okay. Seeing that there are no further oral comments, I will read comments that I have received prior to this hearing. Comment 1, a member of the public submitted written comments to the rules prior to the hearing. It was asked whether the additional testing requirement required by these rules will be applicable to current licensees. To answer, the additional testing requirement required by these rules will apply to initial applications for licensure only and will have no effect on renewals for those currently licensed. Comment 2, a member of the public asked whether the rulemaking hearing would be available remotely via WebEx. To answer, the rulemaking hearing is available to members of the public wishing to attend the hearing remotely. The information for remote login was posted to the board's website under public meeting information. And Mr. Kopchak, have you received any further comments?
No, I have not.
Okay. Now that I have discussed all public comments, next we will need to adopt the regulatory flexibility statement. The regulatory flexibility statement requires analysis as to whether the rulemaking affects all businesses pursuant to Tennessee Code Annotated Section 4-5-403. The statement will read as follows. The proposed rules do not overlap, duplicate, or conflict with other federal, state, and local governmental rules. These rules will also result in greater efficiency in removing barriers to entry with an additional acceptable examination, which creates a greater opportunity to entry into the profession. Further, the board sees minimal impact to consumers with promulgation of the proposed rules, as these rules are also a positive move as they advance the welfare of Tennesseans in reducing regulation and permitting more examination methods of entry, as well as reflecting advancements in technology. There will be only a marginal cost or no additional cost associated with this rule change. However, the board knows of no other less burdensome, less intrusive, or less costly alternative methods of achieving the purpose and objectives of the proposed rules. Finally, these amendments are substantially similar to other states with rules and regulations over the court reporting industry, thus making Tennessee rules consistent with other jurisdictions and allowing better license portability for current and future licensees. Does any member of the board have amendments to that statement as written? If there are changes to be made, then I will need to know what changes should be made to the statement as a motion and roll call vote to adopt those changes. If there are no changes to be made, then I will need a motion and roll call vote to adopt the statement as written.
All right. Any comments from the board in regards to the rule amendments or the regulatory flexibility statement? If there are none, then we'll accept a motion to adopt. Do we have such a motion?
John Rambo makes the motion.
We got a motion from John Rambo to adopt the changes to the rule as well as the regulatory flexibility statement. Do we have a second?
Brandon Pettis, second.
All right, we got a second from Brandon Pettis for a roll call vote. Judge John Rambo.
Yes.
Was that a yes, sir?
Yes.
Okay, great. Marilyn Morgan,
Yes.
Brandon Pettis,
Yes.
Corey and Neal,
Yes.
and Stephanie Branham.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. That was adopted and passed. Do we have any other, I guess, Hugh, do you have any more that you need to go over there?
I do. I'm going to keep
Okay.
going.
Gotcha.
All right. Now that we have adopted the regulatory flexibility statement, next we will need to adopt the impact on local government statement. The impact on local government statement requires a simple declarative statement without additional comments on the merit of the policy of the rule or regulation regarding the financial impact of the rules on local governments pursuant to Tennessee Code annotated sections 4-5-220 and 4-5-228. The statement will read as follows. The Tennessee Board of Court Reporting foresees no impact on local governments. Does any member of the board have any amendments to that statement as written? If there are changes to be made, then I will need to know what changes should be made to the statement, as well as a motion and roll call vote to adopt those changes. If there are no changes, then I will need a motion and roll call vote to adopt the statement as written.
Any changes from our board in regards to the local government statement? If there are none, then we'll accept a motion to adopt the local government statement. Do we have such a motion?
It's Judge Rambo. I move that we adopt the statement.
All right. Thank you, sir. We got a motion from Judge John Rambo. Do we have a second?
This is Corey and Neal. I second.
We have a second from Corey and Neal for a roll call vote. Judge John Rambo,
Yes.
Marilyn Morgan,
Yes.
Brandon Pettis.
Yes.
Corey and Neal,
Yes.
and Stephanie Branham.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. That was passed. All right.
All right, thank you.
You?
Yes, sir. Now that we have adopted the impact on local government statement, next we need to adopt answers to questions required by the Joint Government Operations Committee. The answers to the Joint Government Operations Committee are to a series of questions, which I will read now. The first question requires a brief summary of the rule inscription, which will read as follows. The proposed rules were approved by the board on September 27, 2019. The first proposed change introduces an additional examination accepted upon application for licensure. This change is reflective of industry advancements and practical applications by the individual seeking licensure. The second proposed change adds the word untranscribed to the description of notes required to be secured by licensees as a part of their standards of professional conduct. The next question requires a citation and brief description of any federal or state regulation mandating the promulgation of the rules, which will read as follows. There is no known state or federal law or regulation mandating promulgation of these rules. The next question requires an identification of persons, organizations, corporations, or government entities that are most affected by these proposed rules, which will read as follows. The proposed rules will affect current licensees and future applications. We believe all affected will approve the adoption of these rules because the proposed rules will benefit all industry members. Further, the board proposed these changes based on discussion by associations of the court reporting industry. The next question requires an identification of any opinions of the Attorney General and reporter and/or any judicial ruling that relates directly to the promulgation of the proposed rules, which will read as follows. There are no known opinions of the Attorney General and reporter, nor any judicial ruling that relates directly to these proposed rules. The next question requires an estimate of the probable increase or decrease in state or local government revenues and expenditures, if any, which will read as follows. The board foresees minimal impact to state and local government revenues and expenditures. This concludes the responses required for the Joint Government Operations Committee. Does any member of the board have any amendments to that statement as written? If there are changes to be made, then I will need to know what changes should be made to the statement and a motion, a roll call vote to adopt those changes. If there are no changes to be made, then I will need a motion, a roll call vote to adopt the statement as written.
Board members, then that was our statement to the Joint Government Operations Committee. Very succinctly read. Thank you. Do we have any edits? If there are no edits, then we'll entertain a motion to.
Hey, Glenn.
Yes,
Hey,
sir.
we're having a little trouble hearing you.
Sorry. Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. Again, the board, the Joint Government Operations Committee, those were our statement to them. And thank you for reading that succinctly there, Hugh. If we don't have any edits or changes, then we'll need a motion to adopt that statement. Do we have such a motion?
Brandon Pettis, move to adopt the additional information required by the Joint Government Operations Committee.
All right. Thank you, sir. We have a motion by Mr. Pettis. Do we have a second?
Stephanie Branham, a second.
Thank you, Ms. Branham. We have a second for Ms. Branham. For a roll call vote, Judge John Rambo,
Yes.
Marilyn Morgan,
Yes.
Brandon Pettis,
Yes.
Corey and Neal,
Yes.
and Stephanie Branham.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. That was adopted.
All right, thank you. Now that we've adopted the answers to the questions required by the Joint Government Operations Committee, this concludes the rulemaking hearing. Following this rulemaking hearing, these rules will be put on the rulemaking filing form and submitted to the governor's office and to the attorney general's office for review and approval. Once the attorney general's signature is obtained, these rules will be filed with the Secretary of State and will become effective 90 days from the date of filing. This concludes the rulemaking hearing.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Cross. Appreciate that. Unless you have any objection, I think we're ready to move on to the director's report.
I have no objection.
Okay. For informational purposes, each year, or excuse me, each meeting, but throughout the year, we share the trend analysis of our budget. And of course, you've received that already in advance. As you can see, we experienced a spike in licensing revenue in May and June due to the biennial renewal cycle. As you know, this is our renewal cycle, so we're going to get an increase there. But typically, we run in deficit until we have our renewal cycle. That's pretty typical. So I didn't see anything outside the ordinary there. So we're tracking where we need to. Looks like we're finishing the year with 46,000 in surplus. That will add to our overall revenue, our revenue reserve balance of 178,246. Now, obviously, we'll be our operations expenses will come out of that over the next couple years until our renewal cycle again. So nonetheless, we're tracking about standard. I didn't see anything that just jumped out at me. Does anyone have any questions about that or any statements in regards to? Okay. All right. Seeing that there's none, we'll move on. That's just for informational purposes. Nothing to vote on there. The meeting dates then. It is that time of year again. We have to, of course, approve our meeting dates in advance, and we've set those according to the same pattern from years prior. So that would be March 26th, which is a Friday, and then September 24th, also a Friday, same time. Any questions or comments about that? Or if that works for everyone, then we'll just put that on the calendar, and we'll need a vote in that regard. All right. Do we have a motion to accept the meeting dates?
This is Judge Rambo. I'll move that we adopt those dates for our meetings next year.
Thank you, sir. All right. Do we have a second to adopt those dates for next year?
This is Corey and Neal, and I second.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Neal. All right. For a roll call vote then, Judge John Rambo,
Yes.
Marilyn Morgan,
Yes.
Brandon Pettis,
Yes.
Corey and Neal,
Yes.
Stephanie Branham.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. All right, we'll get those published on the website then and get that moving forward. Okay. Let me, for the Michigan and Mississippi reciprocity, before we dive in there, let's take a look at the reciprocity agreement template. That should be item number 6 there. As you recall from our last meeting, we discussed entering into a reciprocity agreement with both Texas and California. This is the result of that effort. So this will be our template. So anytime we decide we want to enter into a reciprocity agreement, this will be our template moving forward. We'll send that out to the states and then wait on their response accordingly. So I'll just need a vote to accept this as our template, or unless there's changes, of course. Anyone having comments or edits to that reciprocity agreement that they have there before them, and that would be document number 6. All right, we'll entertain a motion then to accept the reciprocity agreement template. This will just be our internal correspondence with and our basically in essence a memo of understanding with our with those states. Do we have such a motion?
This is Marilyn Morgan. I make the motion to accept the template reciprocity agreement.
Thank you, Ms. Morgan. Do we have a second?
John Rambo, second.
All right, for a roll call vote then, Judge John Rambo,
Yes.
Marilyn Morgan,
Yes.
Brandon Pettis,
Yes.
Corey and Neal,
Yes.
and then Stephanie Branham.
Yes.
All right, great. We'll get those to those states, and we'll keep you updated as those states according to their responses. All right, so that gets us to our next item, which is Michigan and Mississippi in particular. I sent you some additional documents yesterday afternoon for your review. We'll take Michigan first. If you can see, they've got their certified electronic recorder, their CER, and their certified stenograph, CSR, and then the CSMR, the certified steno mask reporter. And then just a letter for one of their applicants that were trying to come across to our state, noting basically what some of those requirements are as well, or in particular this reporter, what her scores were, and basically how they're pretty similar to the NCRA. Keep in mind that the standard that we're looking at when we consider any reciprocity is TCA 29610, which grants the board to enter into reciprocal agreements with other states to allow for licensing of their court reporters if that state's requirements, and this is the quote, has substantially the same or more stringent requirements. So based on what you see before you, Michigan's requirements, are there any comments or questions in regard to that? Any statements? Okay, we would entertain a motion to accept Michigan by way of reciprocity, their applicants. Do we have such a motion?
This is Brandon Pettis. I make the motion.
Right, we got a motion from Mr. Pettis. Do we have a second?
This is Marilyn Morgan. They don't require what we just passed that we do require with the electronic recorders. They don't require the transcription part.
They have various entrances into their path. Let me take a look. I know Mississippi has some different entrances as well, so we may have to delineate.
We had the CER as a requirement, and now we just passed and CER.
Sure.
Yeah.
Any other comments in regards to that? Do we have, let's handle the motion we have on the floor then. Do we have a second in regards to Mr. Pettis's motion? Okay, seeing that there are none, that motion will fail then, and then we'll, do we have a motion then to deny? Is there a motion to then to deny Michigan at this time?
This is Stephanie Branham. I'll make a motion to deny Michigan due to the fact that they do not include I believe it's the CET portion.
Okay. Very well. Then we have a motion to deny. Do we have a second?
This is Marilyn Morgan. I second.
All right. Miss-
Is there any way to allow reciprocity for just the RPR part of it and deny it for that, or no? It has to be all or none?
If they have the RPR, then we would accept them by way of
You're right.
yeah, we would
Okay.
accept them by way of examination. They would just have to prove the RPR. But if they're coming in with just their Michigan credentials or their license, based on the criteria there before you, then no, they would be denied.
Okay, then I second the motion.
Okay. Thank you for your comments and clarifiers. All right, for roll call vote then, Judge John Rambo,
Yes.
Marilyn Morgan,
Yes.
Brandon Pettis,
Yes.
Corey Ann Neal,
Yes.
Stephanie Branham.
Yes.
All right. Moving on to Mississippi then. So look at them. We're looking primarily at their rules section, pages 18 through 21, primarily page 19. And they do have a CCR skills test designation as well. Any comments in regards? Yeah, and if you look at the skills examination, page 19 at the very bottom, applicant shall have 75 minutes as a part of this test to transcribe each length of the skills examination. So they do transcribe. Ms. Morgan, would this satisfy, you believe the requirements, that it would be substantially the same or more stringent requirements based on what you see there?
I believe so. What is NVRA? Is that also the voice reporters?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Do we have a motion to accept Mississippi?
This is Marilyn Morgan. I'll make the motion to accept Mississippi.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Do we have a second to accept Mississippi by way of reciprocity?
Judge Rambo seconds the motion.
All right, thank you, sir. Judge Rambo seconds by roll call vote. Judge John Rambo,
Yes.
Marilyn Morgan,
Yes.
Brandon Pettis,
Yes.
Corey Ann Neal,
Yes.
Stephanie Branham.
Yes.
All right, thank you. That's passed. Then we'll accept Mississippi, and they already accept ours, so that'll be pretty easy. There won't be any reciprocity agreement to be sent over to them. I think that settles our reciprocity issue, and then we'll continue to build our our database of those that we accept and don't. So that way we're not revisiting each state over and over again. Thank you for your work on that and examining those qualifications. It takes a lot to sort of mine that out and separate all that. So I appreciate you taking the effort and the time to do that. Looks like we're ready for the, yes, ma'am.
This is Marilyn Morgan. Could I ask one question regarding all the reciprocity? I've
Yes,
been
ma'am.
rethinking it. The California, okay, if they don't accept reciprocity from us, then we don't grant reciprocity to them. Therefore, they have to pass an RPR license. Is that
Mhm. Yeah, it's not. It doesn't have to be basically both. It doesn't have to be both ways. Our standard is TCA 29610, which is that we accept everyone that has substantially the same or more stringent requirements, but it doesn't necessitate that they have to accept ours. If there's requirements are more stringent, then it's very possible that they wouldn't accept ours, even though we would accept theirs. So it's not sort of a a back and forth. It's not everything will work that way. It won't be a two-way street always, depending on what their requirements are. But we'll have to, by statute, accept anyone's applicants that substantially have the same or more stringent requirements.
then what's the point of the word reciprocal?
Well, we send an agreement to them, and then reciprocal is basically, in the sense, especially with our agreement, is in the sense if it's going to, we're going to memorialize that. So we're going to make the effort, but it doesn't mean they have to. Any more questions or comments? Okay. Seeing that there are none, then I think we're ready to move on to the legal portion. Hugh, for the legal report.
Sure thing. Okay, the legal report. We have a single complaint on there. 2020057151. Does everyone have a copy of the summary, or would you like me to read the summary?
We have it.
Okay. Well, my recommendation on this one is closure, based on the summary.
Okay. Is there any comments or questions in regard to our case there on the legal report? All right. Is there a motion to accept counsel's recommendation to close?
Judge Rambo makes that motion.
All right. Thank you, sir. Do we have a second for closure?
Brandon Pettis, second.
All right. Thank you, sir. We have a second for Mr. Pettis. For a roll call vote, Judge John Rambo,
Yes.
Marilyn Morgan,
Yes.
Brandon Pettis,
Yes.
Corey and Neal,
Yes.
Stephanie Branham.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. I think that concludes the legal report. I think we're ready for the agreed citation schedule. If you recall, we went over this, I believe, our last meeting, and we were working on, ways to take care of a lot of what we see through the legal reports. So we're not waiting unnecessarily for those that we can handle. Those that come in that are straight up and down unlicensed activity or something as discussed here, failure to obtain a minimum of continuing education credits and unlicensed activity. Those are things that typically we can just handle without having to bring that before the board. So we've got two categories there. Does anyone have any questions or comments in regards to that? Also, you'll see an example of the letter that we would send out as well, with instructions, and then the agreed citation itself is right behind that. And if they sign that, then they're basically admitting guilt, and then we would enter that in as disciplinary action, and then they would make the payment. That wouldn't have to be handled through our regular legal report, thereby saving us some time in that regard. Anything outside of those schedules, of course, would come to the board per usual. Any questions?
No, Morgan, question as usual.
Sure.
I'm having a lot of people who will contact me personally about filing a complaint, but
Mhm.
they're afraid their name is going to get put out there. Can you tell me something that assures people that they won't be identified, or will they be identified?
Mhm. Yeah, there's no anonymous complaints. There's not a capacity for that. When they file, they would have to list their name, primarily so there has somebody that we can go to for additional information, but also to keep it on the record. So yes, there's not an anonymous arm or capacity.
Okay.
No.
Would they be, would their name be revealed to the person they're complaining against?
It would be listed as the complainant. That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. All right. Any more questions or comments? If this is an agreed citation schedule that you're comfortable with, of course, we've seen it once before already. We were just formalizing it today. Then we would accept a motion to accept that. Do we have such a motion to accept the agreed citation schedule?
Marilyn Morgan, I make the motion to accept the agreed citation schedule.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. Do we have a second?
Corey and Neal, I second.
All right. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Ms. Neal. That was our second. For a roll call vote, Judge John Rambo,
Yes.
Marilyn Morgan,
Yes.
Brandon Pettis,
Yes.
Corey and Neal,
Yes.
and then Stephanie Branham.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. That'll be really helpful, especially with us having 2 meetings a year. I think we can really take care of those quickly. So thank you for your consideration in that regard. All right. Looks like our last item then is new business. Do we have any new business? Does anyone have any comments or anything that they would like to add here? Okay. Being that there's no new business, then I think we're ready to entertain a motion to adjourn. Do we have such a motion?
This is John Rambo. I move that we adjourn.
Thank you, sir. We got a motion from Judge John Rambo to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Corey and Neal, I second.
Thank you, Ms. Neal. For a roll call vote then, Judge John Rambo,
Yes.
Marilyn Morgan,
Yes.
Brandon Pettis,
Yes.
Corey and Neal,
Yes.
and Stephanie Branham.
Yes.
All right, thank you. We are adjourned. Thank you for all your work and preparation as well prior to the meeting. And we look forward to hearing from you again soon. If you need anything, just reach out to us direct.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.